welcome to art class. Today we're going to be creating our own mini theatre out of a shoebox. First, you are going to need a shoebox, and then you're going to need a few simple supplies like a pen, some scissors, some sticky tape, and if you don't have these, try and see what Mom and Dad have got around the house. You could quite easily use some press stick instead of sticky tape. And you don't need 110 colours, although using some colour on your backdrop, which we'll see later, will be quite nice. Right, first you're going to need your shoebox. If you have a shoebox that has a lid that opens and closes like that, that's not a problem. My shoebox happens to have a lid that comes right off. If you don't have a shoebox, well, how about trying a Easter egg box or a cereal box? You just need a box that is about this big. So first we need to figure out, how is our mini theatre going to look? Well, a mini theatre, or theatre, any theatre really, is made up of many different parts. So my theatre is going to look like this. I have the background, which we're going to make a backdrop for later. I have the stage area, and the actors and actresses would act on the stage. Over here would be my audience, and then the front here is usually covered with a curtain. This bit around the edge has actually got a fancy word. It's called the proscenium arch, and we're going to turn our theatre into a theatre that we can use and we can play with from behind, so that our audience sees the action that's happening over there. So the next step is we're going to need to cut a hole in our theatre. I have a very nice pair of scissors here, but if you're having trouble with this, I would suggest asking Mom or Dad. Sometimes boxes are a little bit difficult to cut through, so you might want to get an adult to help you out with this. First, let's draw our lines. I've drawn my lines. I'm now going to cut on those lines. I have a very fancy tool. It is called a craft knife. So I'm going to use that. But again, ask Mom and Dad for some help if you need some help. Right, now I've finished cutting, you'll notice that it's got a hole in the top. Now, this is because I find it easier to move my characters from the top instead of moving them from both sides. But if you want to do holes on the sides, that's also fine. This is just one suggestion. If we have a look at the character, our character will move across the stage like this. But our theatre doesn't look much like a theatre yet. Right, so here we have our theatre. We've got our stage in the front. Now we want to make our backdrop. Our backdrop is our next step. I made my backdrop by drawing on a flat piece of paper first because it was a lot easier for me to do. I measured the paper quite carefully, and then I was able to stick it up against the back. And there we have our picture in the background. Now remember, the backdrop is quite important because it tells us where your play is going to take place. If you have a look in my backdrop, I have got a web for Charlotte, I've got a hay bale, and then I've got some writing which says, draw your background here. In the background I've got a few log beams. Remember, your background can be anything. I would suggest something related to a farm, because Charlotte's Web takes place on a farm. If you want to be able to move different backdrops, you have a scene change, for instance, you could make a backdrop that you slide in like this one, and then you could have another background there behind it when you're telling a story. Just remember, if you have a lot of different backdrops, it is going to take quite a bit of time to change between them. I've used my pencil crayons to colour in the background. Now my pencil crayons, like your pencil crayons from school, are watercolour pencil crayons, which means I can use just a little bit of water and they have a much more vibrant colour. So I'm going to go over my hay bale. I'm going to go over the blue area that we did Charlotte's web over there, just to make her web stand out. And you'll notice the difference between the two. So I'm going to carry on and paint a little bit of that with some water, and I'll see you later. Right, I've got my paint palette here, and in it I've got some of my watercolor colors. Now remember, you don't have to use paint. If you're using pencil crayon, or you are cutting pictures out, printing pictures, or even using some cookies, try and make your background nice and bright, because we don't really want too many white spaces. So you'll notice my paper is going to be very delicate after I've painted on it, so it's going to need a little bit of time to dry. Just going to do a few more touches. Remember, even though we want our background to be nice and colourful, we don't want it to distract from our characters that we're going to make next week. So we want to keep it nice and plain. We don't want to add too many fine details in it. We don't want to add too many different characters in the background. Right, I'm going to leave my background to dry, and in the meantime, let's have a look and see what we're going to do with our theatre. So our theatre is looking a little bare. There are two things I want to do with it. One, I want to give it a floor, and then the other thing that I want to do is I want to give it a little bit of decoration around the sides. When you go to a theatre, you'll notice it has, very often, a theatre has got a very ornate bit around here, the proscenium arch. Now that bit, I'm going to cut out of a thin cardboard. I'm also going to use cardboard at the bottom here to give our stage a floor. And then the final touch, we're going to add some curtains before we put in our background. So let's go ahead and do our floor. I have some nice bright orange paper, and I'm going to use the bright orange paper because I like orange. We're going to paint our floor to make it look a little bit like it's a wood effect. First, I'm going to draw some lines for the planks of my wood. Right, next I'm going to use my pencil crayons to draw some wood grain effect. So I'm going to use my browns. I have 4 different types of brown. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some lines. They're not going to be 100% straight. I've drawn my straight lines to represent the planks of wood. This is going to give me the feeling of the wood. So wood has got a wood grain, and a wood grain is a little bit wavy.